Welcome back, Cass. How are you, my friend?
Hey, what's good? How are you?
No complaints, dude. Thank you for those cranberries. I'm the hit of the neighborhood.
Nice. There you go. There you go. I like your harvest beard. I think you outdid me on that one.
Yeah, I just started letting it go a couple months ago, and I'm just like, you know what? What do I care? I'm at that age and point in my life where it's like, so what? Grow your beard, whatever, right?
At least you can, I guess.
Right? Good point. Well, the light's a little weird in here today. I'm getting like beat on by the sun, so I may have to get up and shut one of the windows. But
Okay.
I don't want to. I'll wait till the sun gets a little lower if it gets into my eyes.
All right. Hopefully it gets better.
Yeah. So, well, let's start. How was your harvest this year?
It was good. It was good. We were up. My farm was up 20% this year, so happy with that. I don't know if it's just I was due for it, or if the regenerative is starting to take over. So I rather think the later half is actually happening. I'm in 4 years in, so every year I get more and more intense with it.
So let's back it up for a second. I think I first met you 2 summers ago. Is that correct, or did we talk?
I think it was before that. It was you came out. Keith was having like a seminar out in. So this is Keith Wilder out in
Yep.
His farm there when he was getting fish fruit going. I met you there, and like everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Leighton!" Like everyone was rushing up to like touch the hand. I was like, "Who is this guy?" I don't know who this guy was. Like I knew Keith kind of, and he was talking about like guys do microscope work or whatever. It's like, all right, yeah, I'll bring something down and just say hi. And so I met you then, and then later I learned you had a whole podcast and all this other stuff going on, and so
yeah, it's been a minute. It has been a minute.
Yeah.
So another interesting parallel to you is that a friend of farmer client of mine, Kyle Moot.
Yeah. He was there. Yeah, I met him.
He began the journey a very similar time, about 4 years ago, and on the second year he did a cover crop. He used winter wheat and unfortunately poke went. When it came time to crimp it in the spring, it would just stand back up on him. So he called me freaking out, thinking that, oh my God, how am I going to get to grow my beans?
How do you plant that?
Would choke out. And I was like, well, you're going to have to plow, I guess. He's like, but that's going to kill all the biology. And I was like, no, if you just set your plow for 1 inch deep, you'll be fine. And he goes, well, I have, high spots and low spots. I go, look, just make sure even on the high spots that the blades are touching the ground, and just drag. And that way, you'll snap the little grass stalks over and you'll be fine. And then other areas it sunk in, an inch or maybe 2. And so he went back out to just kind of walk around and look at it. And he was getting all these clots, and he called me freaking out going, oh my God, my soil's clumpy. And I'm like, no, that's a good thing. That means it's aggregated. And he goes, but we have worms everywhere. And I'm like, oh, that's a really good sign. So that was 2 years ago. And then this year, finally, his soil is soft enough that he can just bury his hands down in it. And that was something that he had never accomplished to date. It's always been, hard pan. So I think in parallel to you is that he had a fantastic year. It was like 226 bushels per acre, which is off the hook. And I'm thinking you're right in line with that transition from when you've gotten completely away from synthetics and into full-on biology and alternative sources for nitrogen. So I think I think you hit that spot.
Yeah, it seems to be that. Like I said, I think initially I pulled. They say you talk about this. They say there's like a rug right underneath the farm, especially perennials too. And if you pull the rug too quick, you can have that collapse in terms of like converting from synthetics input to more of a carbon based or whatever. But yeah, a biological approach, like just bringing that in. So initially I definitely pulled back hard on it. So I paid for that for a year, and then last year was better. It was 20% better than last year, and then this year now we're 20% above that. So it seems to be increasing. Great thing is like the pack out rate is 95% on average. So not 90 to 95%. So it's like part of it. Cranberries, you have poor fruit or rotten fruit, and you got to you have to clean that on site. And anything over like the more you have in your load going in, this is commodity fruit. The more they charge you for it. So the higher pack out rate, meaning less water, which you can't really control, but the percent poor and trash, all that counts. So it seems to be getting cleaner. I can see it, but to see it in the loads and everything too, like when you get the receipts and whatnot.
So, all right, let's talk about pack out. So pack out is when you bring the cranberries to the packing house.
Yeah, I guess I kind of jumped into it. So basically, for commodity cranberries, we wet pick everything. It goes into, they freeze it, they make craisins and whatnot. A lot of that's it's commoditized. It goes we're EU certified, so supposedly we go in that direction, but who knows? Anyways, part of the we knock the fruit off the vine, and then we float the berries even more, and then we will corral into a central location and then clean the fruit on site. Meaning because when you float you flood a bog that's dry for 10 months essentially, you bring everything else up, which is actually, it's been neat because before I got into all this, typically we have this floating corral that we put around the cranberries to pull them into a central location to clean. Usually you would see pests on that, everything floats up. So usually I would normally see some spiders, and you see pests mostly. And then this year it was pretty neat. It was all ladybugs, a lot of praying mantis was pretty cool. You see a lot of those, and my other life, I also worked for or whatever, consult for we'll call it Farm A on the side. And we can get into that later, but you never see praying mantises over there. But my farm, and it was every time we go out there, 2, 3 float, at least the ones that you find floating, and you try to save them. So if they're there for a reason. So it's exciting to see that. And the ladybugs, they're there for a reason. I'm not seeing pests that I would used to see all the time.
So
but anyways,
did you see any pests at all?
there were some mites, but nothing really. It was mostly just predator insects. I didn't really see the typical cranberry weevil or flea beetle, or that's normally what you would end up seeing. So
nice.
So like I said, it indicates the ecosystem's healing. It's getting healthier.
Agreed, 100%. I mean, yeah, that's a really great sign of the return of the ecosystem, and that's going to just keep getting better and better. Have you noticed a difference in birds or songbirds or anything like that above the ground?
Yeah, I mean, we've always promoted them. I think when I first came on here, I talked about I spent a winter. I built 100 birdhouses one winter and put them all. I tried to do one birdhouse for every acre or every 2 acres. This year I was focused on bats. We get them during the day, get them at night. And so usually we get the swallows that they're migratory, and the bluebirds as well. So you definitely see, I see more of that. Like I said, I was seeing that already. So it's but now it seems to be more of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the biggest thing that was kind of a turning point was just the floating insects. The insects is just there's so much more of them. So seeing ladybugs on the cranberry bog it was unusual beforehand, and now it's I open up my truck and they're coming out of it.
Love it,
So.
dude. That's fantastic. Now, what about foxes? Squirrels and potentially things that would eat the cranberries. Have you seen an increase in those?
Yeah, I mean foxes, muskrats, all of them really, coming right through. Every once in a while we'll get some green herrings, which are unusual in our area, but they're smaller herring birds. You know, we have a lot of blue herring. They're very common.
Yep.
The green ones are kind of unique because, like I said, there aren't that many in our area already. So the fact that I see them at my place is kind of exciting.
Yeah. No, that
You know,
it's this is why I'm asking these questions is because it sounds like you've restored the ecosystem a lot more than you've kind of even realized because you are.
actually, yeah. So I actually have two other animals that are fun. So we converted our old cranberry. They call it a screen house. So it's an old cranberry barn where it was built. Where this is pre World War II. Pre World War II, every farm would have a big building on site, and they'd pick all the fruit and put it in the building, screen within the building, and they would sell out like private labels essentially. And so every farm would have like their own special label. They put it on a wooden box. They ship it throughout the country or wherever. And so like the labels became like a little like sub hobby of the cranberry industry. And the screen house, a lot of them ended up getting sold or burned or ours. We used it as a shop for a long time. The wife and I got married in it, converted it into a wedding venue. In like 2018, I want to say. So yeah, it was right before the pandemic. So, anyways, long story short, now it's like a wedding hall facility that we rent out and do functions at. But this year we had a yellow jacket infestation that they somehow got into they got into the roof of like the wedding. The inside of the grand hall is still like uninsulated and everything. So we're having pressure on that end. And my wife tells me, "Oh yeah, we hired this lady to come in to go deal with them." She tried for a week, still having issues. They weren't really getting inside, but like a few of them were getting inside on like the wedding hall. So you have the public in there. It's concerning to say the least. I mean, for the farm side, it's great because they eat insects. So yeah, giant hive. Living under the roof, but for the public, you have to deal with that. So this lady tried to deal with them for a week. I went up there. I, sprayed them just because I'm just trying to like slow them down. And I went up there at like 6 in the morning, right when the sun came up, and like the amount of bees going in and out was unbelievable. Like I said, someone already attacked them for a week, so I was on like the second week trying it. It took us like 3-4 weeks to finally get this like subdued enough where they weren't attacking the guests and everything. Like I said, it's not something. It's just the dirty side of dealing with the public. You have to. You don't want a guest to be stung when they're paying you.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so we had that, and then the other night we had CMAP, which is like Southeast Mass Promotion of Agriculture. It's usually like smaller farms that do direct to consumer, more organic minded. So so they had their annual meeting there, and then the next night we hosted just like a little birthday party for my son there, and we had two bats come flying through the building. I was surprised to see them because I'm like, here we are in November in Massachusetts. It's pretty cold out. I'm surprised these things are still here. So I'll have to deal with that at some point. But like I said, it's like they want to be in the neighborhood. It's what I'm saying is it's neat to see that. As much as no one wants no one wants like a wasp coming in their house, but if you're seeing them, it's a good sign. And if they were that strong, I mean, they were very strong. So it's just some like small side effects of turning the ecosystem back to a healthy balance, I guess.
Yeah. It's one of those things that you got to kind of figure out how to manage because you are creating an environment for a perfect environment for them to really do well in. And so it's one of those things. It's a kind of a double-edged sword. And I don't know the best way to manage it. Although I think the yellow jackets, don't they go underground in the winter?
Yeah, but these are in the roof. And like I looked into it, they say you can get like perennial colonies. So they could have been there for last year, the year before. They just weren't as big as, like I said, this colony, someone attacked it for a week. I mean, I went up there and I couldn't believe, I mean, like right at daylight, hundreds of them going in and out, in and out, in and out. Very strong colony. Like I said, if they were in any other of my other buildings, I have them on my pump houses all the time. I know just to stay away from that corner. You know what I mean? Like they don't usually bother me, but it's just dealing with the public. You have to. It's a balance, unfortunately. But
I wonder if you can maybe remove the nest when they're dormant.
Yeah, I mean that could be an option. Now they're getting dormant. We'll try to backfill that nest. I don't know. Like I said, either way, we have to eliminate them one way or another. So, but
And
the other,
I'm sure if the colony's that big that they sent out
oh
other
yeah,
foods to colonize. So it's not like you're killing something that's never going to come back.
yeah, exactly. Like I said, I have enough buildings there. They can go in any of the other ones. They're more than welcome. It's just that one building. Just I really can't have you in there. You know, it's small complaint, but
Yeah, well, smoke them out, or
yeah, yeah.
remove them when they're dormant.
So, anyways, I know we get sidetracked on that. So
No,
this
no.
year,
Go ahead.
I did a lot of ferments this year. I think I
Okay.
did over 600 gallons or so of like finished product. So that was pretty neat. It was I got further into that. I know like initially, I'd like to get in the compost, but it sounds like it's like you need to pay attention to it, and I'm busy, so I think that's kind of why I ended up with more of these ferment process. But
Yep.
it was pretty neat. I got all my results here, but I guess I'll go through each. I'll just skim them. So I'll start off first. We'll do. I ended up with some kelp. So our buddy Keith,
Yep.
he's involved with the seafood industry and lives in Cape Cod. And on the Cape, there's been a pilot program that there's no farms in Cape Cod. It's pretty much, it's developed. Uh, but they still have dead zones. They still have this nutrition runoff issue, nitrogen issue, or whatever. And so are trying a pilot program to grow kelp using the oyster farmers during like their off season, and they would grow this kelp that would absorb extra nutrition and entering the bay, and the bay would be cleaner next year, and more stuff can start growing back. So anyways, long story short, Keith calls me in the spring and he says, "Hey, you want some kelp?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I guess yeah, I'll try some kelp." So they did their study, weighed the stuff out. Anyways, long story short, they could grow it, but they had no use for it essentially. So I ended up with the kelp. It was about 40 pounds or so. We ended up putting in a tote. I rinsed it out. I rinsed it out 3 times. I kind of wish I didn't rinse it out, but whatever. Rinsed it. I wasn't sure with the salt coming from the ocean if that would have bad effects downstream, but we ended up, I rinsed out 3 times to just, at least try to reduce that, and then put it in a tote filled it with 100 gallons of water. We added, I'll call out Fish Brew. We added one of their products, Rise and Thrive. And Keith's only request was he wanted Rise and Thrive, he wanted it aerated, and he wanted the biology and the nutrition results back. And I could have the rest of it. So I was all right, sure. But yeah, I don't know, Keith. I've been doing a lot of the fermentation. I don't know if I've tried the aeration before process, and these plants I had it didn't seem to work as much. But if you're insistent, that's fine. I'll go ahead with it. So week one, go ahead with it. Looking in the tank, I got the aerators going, and I have like a stick. I just poke around at the kelp and just to see what's there. And yeah, first week, a lot of kelp. All right, whatever. We'll try it again next week. Yeah, still a lot of kelp. Third week, it was like 70% water. I couldn't believe it. Like within like that, like around that 15-day period, I guess it started to really break down. So I ended up doing 4 weeks with the aerated. We sent the result out to Andy Marsh for her. I forget her company there, but
Rhizos.
Rhizos.
Yep.
Yep. So she did a biology report on it, and then I had it sent to Logan Lab as a nutrition result. So, and both
So
were,
there's another one that I want you to start using. It's called Agro Labs.
Agro
And
Labs. Okay.
Agro Labs, and you want to do the slurry test, because I
Okay.
find
All right.
this is a lot more accurate
Right
in
there.
any kind of ferments or liquids or
Agro
extracts.
Labs. Yeah.
Slurry test. because Logan uses a strong acid, so you lose some of your values. You
Yeah.
lose up to 30 to 40% of your values, whereas agro does very, very weak acid, so you're going to get a lot more a truer result. Put it that way.
I mean, I was still surprised. Like they have a percent. You know, it's a big sheet essentially. And they
Yep.
have this one line. This is percentage, and for
That's saturated paste.
saturated paste. Yep.
Yep.
So calcium 21%, magnesium 20%, potassium 43%, and then sodium 14%. So, like I said, I was surprised by it. And then of course Andy's was, showed lots of biology in there. Uh, yeah,
What were your flagellant numbers for amoeba?
flagellates. None observed.
And
Amoebas were 81,000.
nice.
Ciliates were 44,000. Diatoms were over 600,000.
Nice.
And then the bacteria was 190 versus fungi was 30. So
you were only at 190 for your bacteria.
Yep.
That's fantastic. That means those amoebas were chewing them up.
Yeah. Protozoas 81,000. Like I said, it was pretty neat. I was very surprised by it. It was crazy when I strained it. Like literally, the only thing was left was like these like little stebs of like the core of the plant.
Yep,
everything else had converted to like everything else converted to liquid. And like I said, it didn't really happen until like 3 weeks in. So I was surprised by it. But
well, it's funny how you hit a certain sweet spot and everything just disintegrates. Like I've noticed, for instance, when I put hydrophobic compost in a bucket of water and I put a bucket of rocks on top of it to hold them under the water, that exact same thing hits. First, all of a sudden you'll see a foam production, and then that's where I'll see high levels of flagellates. And if I just let it go and go and go, that stuff that was really hard to pull apart all of a sudden just falls apart in my hands. So there's something about the time that it gets to a certain point and then it just disintegrates.
It just breaks apart, huh?
Yeah. I've seen that similar phenomenon before in really like super coarse compost. So I'm not surprised at all, and I'm not surprised that the claw didn't freaking disintegrate because that's really, really hard shit. Like I composted the claw of when I first got here and COVID hit. The first thing I did was go, oh, shit, I better start making some compost. And so I had that claw go through 4 or 5 cycles before I couldn't find it anymore. So that's a lot to disintegrate those. So maybe next time just cut that off and get rid of it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it was easy. It was easier. It was definitely easy to filter out because it was like this big chunk,
And so you use that full strength, or did you dilute it?
So I've been typically doing like a gallon an acre of any of the ferments so a gallon an acre. So I had 100 gallons. So I applied it twice, and then double on some of the hybrids. I figured ones that needed it more, certain areas I doubled it up on. But usually,
So you put that through your irrigation, like with a Venturi or something? How do you only put a gallon on every acre?
So we chemigate pretty much everything.
Okay.
For granular, now I can hire a drone to do that. But most of it, especially with the ferments and everything, it's all liquid. It's easier to convert to liquid than I can apply it when I want. And so I have a double diaphragm or a diaphragm pump that I inject it through the main line of the sprinkler system. The sprinkler system it's designed to like have an even spray out because this industry is known for doing it. So there's like a specialist that really gets it in. So you have like a 4-minute rinse out or even tighter than that.
Yep.
So typically all these ferments I've been doing just like a 4-layer application. People say, I don't know, it may not work, but I'm like, I don't know. Either way, it's getting out there. So I don't know. Plants seem to like it. But
do you know how many gallons went
It's mixed
through it.
with.
Yeah,
Typically, it's probably like 300 gallons, I would say. I think that's like the study that I've read before was 300 gallons per
you're
acre on top of your whatever you're injecting,
gotcha.
roughly. Like I said, and that's an older study, so these systems are getting a lot tighter, so it could be less than that, but that's like a rough estimate.
So
And like I said,
that's a very low dilution. 300
yeah, I
gallons.
mean, yeah. So,
So,
like I
yeah,
said, but,
you could probably go up on that. Like, seriously. I mean, we did 5-to-1 dilution on and 40 gallons an acre and saw tremendous results.
mm,
So you might want to think about like if you've got 300 gallons, divide that by 5, and then add that many gallons in at your application, so you can really see the difference.
mm.
And
Yeah,
and
like I
and
said, yeah.
and kelp is hormone, so that's not going to hurt. There's no way it's going to hurt anyone.
No, I mean it's never gonna hurt. You know what? I think I'm coming to the point. I'd rather feed them weekly with broilers that I can produce cheaply on the farm, versus like heavy doses of typical MBK or whatever.
Yep, yep.
Um,
Low and slow, love it.
Low and slow. Like I said, like I don't eat. I eat every day, so I get the plants can photosynthesize, but we can help it along too.
Well, remember, at the end of the day, it's all about ADP. I mean, the more that plant can use that energy toward growth or flower, um, the less energy it has to produce to, uh, for exudates and defense and everything else, the bigger your yields are going to be. And I tend to think that as you get this more and more dialed in, your yields are just going to get better and better and better every year.
Yeah, like I said, this year was interesting. I was up 20%. I never had like a personal best for yield per field or per bog, but everything was up. And like some stuff I've been really just pulling back on. Cranberries really aren't paying very well. Um, so just pulling back on older stuff that are just trying to reduce costs and everything. But the ferment, I keep throwing that at it because like I said, I can do it for $1 a gallon, so
Yep.
I can. It's pretty cheap, relatively minus my time. So I
Uh,
just
what
even
other
though.
what other ferments did you use?
All right, what else? I'll go through the list. So we did the kelp. I did. So I did stinging nettle and horsetail.
Nice.
So I know you had the idea the other day talking about stinging nettle. It does have a smell to it, I will say,
Yep.
but it yeah, yeah. So, and the horsetail is considered a weed in our industry. It typically grows in big patches. It grows between April and September. Typically, it's gone over the winter. But I know many people, including my father, spent a lot chasing it, hitting with herbicides. But once I started reading and learned, wow, this plant is actually beneficial. This is kind of neat. So, typically I will hire in like actually, I want to talk about this was, so we typically hire in like a hand weeding crew for a few weeks in the spring, a few weeks in the fall. So cranberry bogs are like a manicured lawn essentially.
Okay.
And, we try to, if you spend the budget on pulling out weeds, it prevents them from overtaking the place. Um, like some things like there's no answer for like a swamp maple or you know like some of these weeds just there's no other like even a chemical solution for them. They just grow there naturally. So
Yep.
if you just kind of stay up with it, it prevents them from getting out of control. So anyways, I had a crew in the spring and I knew of a patch that was just coming in. So I had them spend a day working on it, filled up a big barrel of it, of just the nettle. So I was able to capture that. And I'll just go on the percentage, quick shot, 17% for calcium, 21% for magnesium. And it's just 58% on potassium, which I was really surprised by because I guess I knew it before, but looking at it again, I'm like, wow, almost 60% is insane. And then a 1.8 for sodium. So
What was the sodium?
a 1.8, so
Okay,
very
good.
little sodium.
Yep.
And then I
And they're
also did,
really high silica too, right? What was your
uh,
sil- What was your silica reading on the?
I don't know if they have a silicon reading.
Yep.
Was 12.8.
Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah, so that was good. And then I also did nettle. Nettle, not that doesn't grow in the bog; it grows in my garden, and it's great for tea and everything, and human health and plant health. Calcium on that was 22%. Magnesium was 27%. Potassium 48%, and sodium 1.3%.
Fantastic.
So, and I've as I do more, as I get involved with like public outreach, I'm doing this documentary I got tied into. I'm trying to explain. I showed them like my fermentation process, and I'm trying to like part of this is like as a farmer, you ask where's your food come from, and you say, oh, it comes from the garden, it comes from the farm, So we know that, but you ask a farmer where his nutrition comes from, and he says, oh, it comes from Nutriag or it comes from
Yep.
Bayer. Or so like now I'm trying to publicize more of this is these things are, in our backyard and we're fighting them. But reality is you could upcycle at your farm
Mhm.
and get nutrition back that you're losing, so
Yeah, absolutely. And even if the potassium is through the roof, it doesn't matter because calcium's a double bonded, so it's going to knock the potassium off of the cation exchange sites. And
hmm,
that's pretty much what the percentage in saturated paste is telling you. That if you take this product and put it on, say, clay, that those ratios would be pretty typical of what would happen, like if it got absorbed or connected to the clay platelet. But when you have calcium as a double positive, it'll knock the potassium, it'll knock the sodium off, um,
hmm,
and potentially change the magnesium. But bottom line is though that those are all very high in calcium, which is a very important nutrient, and so that's fantastic. And again, having that high of silicon is super beneficial. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I freaked out when I saw diatoms and Keith's stuff. I was like, oh my god, natural source of silicon, and it's plant available. And so as they die, they just get gobbled up by the microbes and then released back to the plant. And there was this whole thing, dude. When I was down at Rodale, there was this group of scientists or activists that came through there and were doing like a half day event about the value of silicon, whatever form it comes in, and how important it is for farmers. And their whole thing was they wanted to spread beach sand on everybody's friggin' acres. And I'm like, how the hell are you going to do that? I mean, the weight of the sand, distributing it equally across the soil, and just the cost of trucking it, moving it, and delivering it would be ridiculously astronomical. And so I kind of laughed it off. And then later I went back to Elaine and I was like, what the heck were these guys all about? I mean, that doesn't make any friggin' logistical sense to me. And she's like, well, it's kind of bringing the awareness of the fact that this minor nutrient is really critical for a lot of plant processes, specifically in cell strengthening and plant defenses. So, like, it prevents the plant from snapping under heavy wind or hail. There's just all these benefits to having high levels of that in your soil system. That's whether it's bioavailable or it can be mined by the bacteria. And so I always put that in the back of my head as, wow, that's kind of interesting because you never hear about that. And I mean, you talk to every farmer you ever meet and ask them, well, what do you think of silicon or silica? And pay attention to what they say because
hmm.
most of them be like, what? Why would you even think about that?
Oh,
But it's
it's yeah, it's true. It's funny you bring it up because Cranberries' oldest cultural uh, farming practice is sanding, is applying sand to the cranberry vines. So cranberries are a pioneer species and they grow in on bare sand, bare spots. That's why they thrived on Cape Cod on the sand dunes. And back, when they were still wild and people would just harvest them, um, one of the farmers or the landowners noticed when the sand from the sand dune would blow on the cranberry vines, it became more vigorous next year. So it became a cultural practice to apply an inch of sand every 3 years. Like I said, it goes back to silica, which is, it's a great idea. Logistically, like you said, it is a challenge. And currently in Southeast Mass, I think my own farm, we don't have sand, so we very limited on doing it. We don't really do that just because the sand is it's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But I figured last year we had a good winter for ice sanding. For 4 acres for me, I think it was like $14,000
Wow.
to apply it. Like I said, the cranberries respond very well to it because they're pioneers, and it fills in the roots and makes them stronger and better growth. But that's a chunk of change. But maybe there's other ways to still get silica out there. Like I said, it's more or less just applying silica. So I get it. I'm not coating the roots with silica from my horsetail, but if I'm applying to the plant's still getting that in within its nutrition diet. So
Yep. And it's
there's definitely
plant
something
available.
there.
Yeah, it's plant available, so it doesn't have to leak the exudates to grow the bacteria to bind the sand to get the silica out of it.
Oh yeah,
So,
100%.
right. So you've done the heavy lifting for it, which is fantastic.
So this is from Sparks, and this is a global survey of what's in sand around the world. So yeah, there's a lot in sand, and really, really important.
That's pretty neat.
Thanks for that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you also mentioned calcium. So for me, this year was like the year of calcium, and so part of I had my own farm. I consult for we'll call it Farm A, and Farm A, big industrial old farm. It's been in the farm business for over 100 years. They have a lot of acreage. They do very well. But I've been working for them for the past few years just to help out my own ends, and because they have access to so much more. They have access to a lot more things than I could on my own farm. So it's whatever. Long story short, I work for them. And anyways, the farm is split up in 4 different growing regions, and they have 4 managers that run the different regions. And the business is they want the most barrel per acre. That's the goal. It's stated goal. Everyone knows it. And I've been working there for a few years. Past few years, they've 4 of these managers. 2 of them are rising to the top to take over. Next generation to take over this corporate farm. And my good buddy there, he got in a bad accident in the spring, where basically he was run over by a truck. Long story short, he survived it, could walk and everything, but he had to take the whole growing season off. And at the time, he was running about 800 acres, and so a good chunk of the area. And so they asked me to help fill in his, part of that area. So I was basically, Cranberry guy's best dream. I could run this operation, drive around and call nutrition shots all year round. So anyways, where was I going with this?
Calcium. You were going
Calcium. Yeah. All right. So anyways, so the farm had naturally already done calcium product in the spring, and then they kind of, forgot about it later on. And long story short, he was out. So it was actually neat. I was able to push more biology on this farm, more than it probably wouldn't have been allowed, because now I was the guy writing the order. So I was, trying to do my part and bringing, keeping a healthy ecosystem. But anyways, they have one variety of cranberries that they look very nice throughout the whole year, but they have a virus issue, and that virus issue is causing a rot issue. So part of my process this year was, and we also, it's a big farm, so they get a lot of solicitators. So a lot of people are offering different calcium products, and we were thinking, well, if we can paint calcium, we apply calcium in the spring, and then it goes to the new growth, and then it'll flower and turn to a berry, what if we start painting that berry more or less with calcium? So we have a few different products of calcium. And it was basically just trying to use that as like a nutritional answer to having fruit quality issues. And I wasn't sure yeah, because like cranberry soils don't have calcium in it. We don't have potassium in it, so you have to apply that stuff. And like I said, I wasn't sure your thoughts on that. I figured I'd bring it up. And I'm trying some oyster. I'm trying to make my own, but we'll see. But
No, that's great. Anytime you can use what's in nature, it's going to be way more bioavailable than the synthetic version of it. I mean, I can get into like electron orbits and all that happy shit, but every time you go down subatomic particles, you lose people. So I'm not going to waste anybody's energy on that. But
yeah,
bottom line is, yeah, I talked to Keith about figuring out a way to turn those shells into flour. So not grinding it, not turning it into little shards, but actually turning it into flour, like using like an old flour mill. So stones, grinding it until it's powder. If that could be done, then you could apply it like in winter. Like what'd you call it? Ice sanding. So you drive the equipment
on ice and
Yep, exactly right. And then when it comes time for spring, and it thaws, all that goes right into the bog evenly, and you're given the biology plenty of time to solubilize it. Because the other thing about fish brew is that people don't recognize or don't truly understand fish actually have two stomachs. One on the inside that they can see through their mouth, and the other is the biofilm on their outside. So the biofilm actually mineralizes or remineralizes minerals that are suspended in the water or attached to the water molecule. And so we know that the fish waste and the fish water has got all those solubilizing, potassium solubilizers, calcium solubilizers, phosphate solubilizers. So with the addition of the biology specifically from rearing fish in the bog after you've treated like that with, and your ferment is loaded with potassium. So you're really like setting the stage for the next level of what I want to call regenerative cranberry production. Because look,
yeah.
you brought the ecosystem back, right? Now you have all of this balance, predatories, keeping everything at bay, and all you got to do is worry about keeping the chemistry in balance. And chemistry is the only limiting factor to biology. If it's not in the chemistry file, biology can't soluble. So now you just put extra down and just let it sit there until the plant needs it, and then the biology reacts and solubilizes it. So this is friggin' fantastic. So all right, we've been through. Did you do the stinging nettle and the horsetail at the same time, or were those two different ferments?
They were on the same time. I just had them on the same sample.
Okay.
What else did I do?
So that sample that you showed us.
Sorry, what was that?
So you did the combination. You tested the combination of both.
No. So they were set. Yeah, they were tested separately. So it was two separate batches. I just sent them in at the same time. So that's why I was kind of reading off the same list. Another one I ended up doing is there is, I don't know. So there's a Japanese knotweed, which is like a invasive plant here in New England. It's very strong. People try to spray it, they try to mow it. No matter what you do, the thing keeps growing back. All you need is like a little root shoot to come back. Has a strong root system. So there also is there's an organic biofungicide that's derived from Japanese knotweed, but it's very expensive. It's like $200 a gallon. I mean, like I said, as I'm trying to get away. I'm getting away from broad spectrums, trying to pull that rug back, but not pull it back too much, but get away from broad spectrums, more softer chemistries, And actually, I'm just going to go off the side tangent because I actually meant to bring this up for the public or for this audience. So you talk about farm insurance. I want to give you this example of farm insurance and the implications it has for farming. It's a great tool to have. You'd be crazy not to have farm insurance. You'd be crazy not to have any kind of business insurance. But one of the things with farm insurance, yes, you can apply to it and then your rate doesn't go up. However, so I had an issue on a bed on one of my outlet properties where the Japanese knotweed, or sorry, the cranberry weevil are really intense there. So cranberry weevil, they like to drill their eggs into the flower. They chew the flowers off. They can basically chew everything down. Typical IPM recommendations are at 4 weevil is when you have to act. And this place typically has 50 to 100. Just naturally is there.
Damn.
So it's a high intense area. We have a big neighbor next door that has a lot of pressures there too. I don't know. I may have to deal with my kid here. He's screaming. I may have to give me 1 second. I don't know if it can give me a hot second here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but
no, it's fine. But if you have to tend to him, go give.
No, just give me a few minutes.
Just
give me a hot second.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time. I'll get Ken on and we'll talk.
Well, yeah, I'm here just sitting in the background waiting, right?
No, I know you're Oz back there pulling levers and
the man behind the curtain, right? So let's talk about Cass's journey, because he started this 4 years ago and is just moving forward. And last year his numbers were up. This year they're up that much more. And it really is about the biology and supplying the right building blocks. Now, I put up, a statement, weeds equal medicinal plants for the soil. And he's using the weeds on his property to supplement the nutrition that's in the soil. What do you think of that, Leighton?
Oh, I love it, man. It's the foundation of natural farming, or Korean natural farming, is taking these things that are competing and potentially pushing back what you want to grow, and using them as a resource in a way that is both beneficial to the plant, beneficial to the soil system, and beneficial to moving the ecology in a direction that you want to. So long term, it has huge consequences, all beneficial. So absolutely. And another thing too is that I'm glad you said that. Like last year he had an improvement, and this year he had another improvement. So what were the two improvements put together? Because that's something that nobody recognizes, right? They're not like, well, I've got over the last 2 years, I've had a X amount of % increase, right? And that was something I struggled with Kyle. I'm like, Kyle, in the beginning you were having these like slight jumps, but if you go back and look over the whole 4 years, how much better you're doing now than you were 4 years ago, that's what the story that you should be telling. And to get other people to encourage, say, look, my yields were not fantastic the first year, but they were better the next year, and then or equal to the NPK that I put down that cost me this much, and this only cost me this much, and I had a similar yield. Well, that's profit in my pocket. And then you keep adding those percentages up and over the course of 4 years. And then you all of a sudden you go, holy shit, I'd be an idiot not to do this. Right? Anyway,
Yep.
we were ranting, Cass.
No, that's good.
Do want to mention the dissolved organics material that Cass has created with the kelp. As soon as it's dissolved in that water column, the molecules are available to the biology at a size that's easy for them to use. And that's where, the fermentations you're doing, Cass, are just the perfect thing. But I'm going to jump off and let you guys yap on.
All right.
That's good.
Yeah, he does bring up a good point. It's called dissolved organic matter, which is basically what a ferment is, or what a compost extract is. And it really has a lot of benefits, both in that it can easily penetrate soil, move down into the root zone, and like he said, is way more bioavailable. So again, a lot less energy, both on the cellular from the biology's consumption, as well as conversion to plant available. So,
oh yeah, 100%. I mean, you can just physically see the plant just takes it.
yeah.
It's so much easier.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. All right, so
where was I? The insurance.
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna have a visitor. So anyways, I had this bad weevil pressure, and I had to make a claim on it because my crop was down. I think it was the weevil. I know it's normally bad weevil there. So anyways, so I made it, I made an insurance claim. I said, it was below my insurance. Basically, if you're below what the insurance guarantees, then they'll give you some sort of payout. So as part of that payout process, they said, all right, we need you to give us a letter from the Ag Extension giving us and you a IPM plan for the next year, meaning for 2025.
Yep.
So the IPM plan includes a broad spectrum, which I did not want to use myself, but it got me the payout for last year's down crop. But going into this year, it's worrisome. It's like if I don't apply this product and I have another down year because of this weevil pressure, it potentially they won't pay out. Insurance companies, it avoids the insurance, and they always that's their business model, is to take fees in and not the payout, and that's how you make money insurance. So, and it's like this downside effect of it pushes for this chemistry answer. Unfortunately, it's just, and that's just the rate. Like you mentioned it before for other people, like you mentioned it in the past, but I want everyone to know, like that's the reality. Is I had it down here last year, and this year I apply a product which I normally morally wouldn't apply, but because I could potentially lose thousands on it if I had a down year again, I had to follow through with it. So,
well, here's the good news, brother. With the right biology, it will break it apart. And
like I said, like I said, the bog, fortunately made it through. It's an old bog. It's dealt with weevil before. It's just, I just wanted to explain to people like it's just part of the process, unfortunately, of agriculture is, you apply for insurance, and to meet your insurance for this year, you may have to do something you don't want to do. But like I said, the biology should fix the system. But like I said, I feel guilty because I know how nasty this stuff is. And I don't apply anywhere else, but just with this one specific area because of this issue.
So what I'm going to recommend is that in the spring, you go to that bog and you've applied this, and even better would be go to a bog that's always applying it, right? Because those plants will have built up a tolerance to it, and then ferment those plants and ferment as many of the weevils as you can find, like go out and capture them
and ferment them.
And spray them on. That will freak them the fuck out.
That's interesting. That's a cool idea. Actually, that's a great, because that bog, I guarantee you, it's going to have a high count next year. It's just in a spot where the population is bad. But now I know that's a great idea. I'm going to ferment them. I'm going to show them who's boss. That's a great idea.
Yeah, as many as you can. Smash them, ferment them, and reapply them. And you're gonna freak the population out.
That's so funny.
They're gonna move out of town, move into your neighbors.
No, I love it. Well, it's funny because I have a organic bog that I run organically. So the fruit you got was run organically, and the first year, I think I mentioned this last year, but first year the weevil, typical, it was 4 counts, then it was 8 count, and then it was 20 count right before flower. And I had a mentor, and I would call him every week. I'd time my own sweep, and the number would go up. I'd call him. He said, "There's nothing you can do. Just don't worry about it." And I would like, "Oh my god, this is twice the allotted amount." And then like the next week, it was 15, and then it was 20. And every time I call him, I got it. What do I do? He's like, "Nope, nothing you can do. Just let it go." And then, so they have two life cycles. They have one in the spring, and then they'll come out and hatch in the fall or in the summer. And same farm where I didn't spray the organic stuff. I just said, nope, I'll just keep going with it, even though it's killing me. And then that same area, right in that same area, I had beds, nearby that got this treatment in the spring, and then the summer population was worse, but the organic bed was nothing. It completely, the ecosystem leveled out. And there was no weevil on it last year, and this year, the spring, there was no weevil in the spring or in the summer. So like I said, it was like that initial getting through that initial phase. The ecosystem leveled out, and because it's organic, I wasn't applying some other ones later on, or just everything was just it was just organic input. So
Yeah, dude, it just goes to show you that if you allow the plant to build defenses based on giving them inputs that are non-synthetic, it's going to shake it off, and the bugs are not going to come. The only reason the bugs are there is because they're there to decompose those plants. Those are bad plants. Those plants should not be consumed by anybody, and that's their job, is to turn them back into soil so other plants, healthy plants, can grow there. And everyone hates the pests, but in reality, they're just doing their job, man. They're sweeping the sidewalks. They're freaking sweeping the streets, man. Trying to
I 100%. I agree with it. Like I said, it's just I've had my pesticide license for 20 years, so I'm like ingrained in that. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but when you get a license, you have to get credits every year. To get credits every year, you learn how to apply more pesticides, not how to apply less. It's just, and so and that's why, you wonder why farmers don't take on, this biology approach or these other approaches, because they're already it's already too late. They're already so ingrained with this other style. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's that it's just the system. It's the matrix that kind of keeps them in there. But,
yeah, it's like the heroin, man. Give them some really good heroin, and they'll be back.
Oh yeah. So to go off of your tangent with Ken there, what I've been noticing is, I'm not getting personal bests, crazy numbers, yield per acre, but my inputs are so much less. I'm not spending it at the chem store where the price goes up every 10% every year. Making my own stuff and making my own fertilizer. I'm not paying someone else to do it. You pay someone else to do it, then you pay for the middleman. You know what I mean? And it's just.
And then
you turn this on now. Yeah, sorry.
You're good, bro. You're good.
Yeah.
I got pets that I'm amazed haven't been barking. So,
That's true. That's true.
Right.
So, anyways, I'll go to my next two ferments. These were Japanese knotweed. So, I think I mentioned it before. There's a biofungicide, very expensive. It's extraction of Japanese knotweed. And by this point, I learned that when you ferment, you're also grabbing those plant hormones with you. So, typical management for cranberry and for most fruits is to try to prevent the fruit rot during bloom. So we use these fungicides to apply on the plants and everything. There's organic, there's normal stuff, rather conventional fungicides. But the idea is basically that's where the pathogen gets in. It's that's the answer. That's the current model. I don't think it's the answer. It's just the current model. So anyways, I was like, well, I could make my own extraction from knotweed. I mean, that's, I get the knotweed and I just have to wait. It flowers in September. So we ended up doing is we did 600 gallons of this. And we waited for it to bloom, and which is September. And we took the whole plant, root, the flower, everything, put it in the totes. Made our inoculation using EM1 and water, and basically let it cook all winter, or ferment until we needed it. Typically, like I said, typical fungicide applications are like mid-June or so. So extract it then. I got to send it out to the lab. I can't really test the biofungicide properties of it, but I mean, the plant's very strong already, the knotweed. So worst case, it's, brings that more vigor to it, and it's blooming. So like I said, some other company claim this is, a source of their product. So there must be some claim to it, but
No,
nutritionally,
I love the fact that you took the whole plant in sexual reproduction. That's where you're going to get those highest value of the hormones that you're looking to get. So well done, bro.
Yeah. Like I said, they came out great. Like nutritionally, I can tell you 20% calcium, magnesium one was 45, one was 35. Potassium was 39 and 42, and then sodium was 0.5 and 1%. So
nice. And I want to back something up. When you harvest kelp, you do not have to rinse all the salt off of it. That's where you're going to get all your trace minerals. Is in those little tiny salt crystals. So, and they form on the outside of the plant. So next year, when you do your kelp ferment, if it's fresh kelp, don't rinse it off. Just ferment it as is. Some of it will remineralize into little crystals that look like sand at the bottom, and those, just let those go. But in other words, don't worry about them. But then you're going to have a lot of trace minerals that you wouldn't ordinarily have gotten if you'd rinsed them all off. And that's something else too, is that when you get ready to do this all again, I definitely want you to look at your trace minerals. Make sure you have molybdenum. Make sure you have good copper. What's the other? Iron's a really important one. Sulfur is an important one. And these are all nutrients that people really don't talk about, but they are critical for different plant functions and defenses. So just keep that in mind.
No, I mean, like the weakest link is your issue, really. So, like you mentioned, the neat thing was like these ferments, it's all plant bioavailable. It's in the organic chemistry mentality. So, like I said, it came out very well. I applied. So I worked the farm A. We did the Japanese knotweed, as they have a science R&D division that I was attuned in. So we applied it over there. We applied it on my own farm. Just kind of split it between the fungicides, and then like I said, I still apply fungicides. No broad spectrums, no mancozeb. I do one synthetic, and then the rest are organic. Plus, and then using the knotweed as like a supplement in between that. Because if you go over 20% fruit rot, your fruit gets thrown out. So you have to prevent that. And it's just the unfortunate. It's just the way business is, unfortunately. But
so did you reduce it with?
Yeah. It seems like I did. Like I said, I had one bed that I've been having issues with. I think a lot of it is fruit scald, meaning like the fruit colors in September, and then if you have a hot streak, that fruit is red and the sun's beating on it, and it's like a thinner canopy, that like fruit will like boil on like one side, and it's squishy on one side, and it's a hybrid, so it's naturally going to be focused on bigger berries, not necessarily plant health. Just because they were focused on other things. So like I said, that's one of it I've had historical issues with. So, and this, I was getting all my attention too this year, and I had one load at 17%, but then the next load was 2%. So like, off the same bed, I don't know if the test taker or maybe it was that bad, but
that's a huge reduction.
Yeah. Like I said, only one load, but the year before I had two loads that were 20% that I had to get. I had to get second cleaning. It's process. It's something you pay for, and it can salvage some of it. But so like I said, it was a lot better this year. And I said overall, the farm pack out rate was very high, 90 to 95%, which is very high. Typical average, I would say, is like 80 to 90%. Because it's just there's all these things, like the big thing is like farmers focus on yield because that's what we get paid on is volume. But if you get big yield, then you get big rot, or like if you had 10% rot, but it's over 10 truckloads, and it means you have a truckload that's 100% rot. That's 100% rot, like in theory. So like you're still paying someone to move the fruit around and pick it and corral it and clean it, all for a truckload that you're not getting paid for.
Yeah.
So if you have a better pack out rate, you have 2%, then 10 truckloads is, it's a quarter of a truck, which is
right. 9.75.
And if I'm making my own ferments and my own amendments, I'm not paying for that. It's lots I'm paying too, on that end. So
at some point you need to do what's called an economic data sheet, where you're basically showing your yields, you're showing your reduction in labor and cost, the reduction in twice cleaning, and then value, a dollar value, and that will be the most powerful selling tool for the other farms that you're consulting. You say, look, these numbers don't lie, guys. And that's the hardest thing with farmers, is that you got to take their focus off yield and put it on dollars. How much money did you really make? I mean, why are you working, farmer? Why are you working? Are you working to make more money or to make more plants?
Oh, and actually, it's a good side tangent, because it's frustrating. All farm commodity right now is in the gutter, like across all agriculture. Besides beef is good, but everything else is we're taking it on the chin. Yep. So there's no excuse for people starving in this world, because there's farmers we're producing more than they can sell. It's just a shame. I don't know. It's just the unfortunate ag business. It's just like we're not getting paid a lot. There's no excuse for high food prices, because it's not like it's we're taking all of it. It's getting sucked into the rest of it. It's getting lost.
It's all about
exactly. I said there's no excuse. I'm telling you right now, there's no excuses. Every farm I know every sector I know is overproducing. Dairy, corn, cotton, everything is overproducing, but you don't see it when you go to purchase it, unfortunately.
No, you don't. And that is the real unfortunate part about the system that we are in at this point in time is so controlled. I mean, I'll never forget when this goes back to like 98, 99. I was down in Florida and I needed a printer. And so I bought a printer down in Florida for, I think it was $79. And I put it in a box and shipped it back with me. I put it in baggage. And when I got home, I was in Staples buying printer paper, and that exact same model was $179. And I went to a friend of mine. I said, "What the F is this?" He goes, "Leighton, they have computer models. They figure out how much money we're making, per average person in this area. And the pricing all gets based on that. Because they'll lose money in one area because they know they're going to make it up in another area just to move the printer. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the printer. It's about the fucking ink. How much is the printer ink? It's more expensive than gold. Literally,
it's crazy.
More expensive than gold. It's ridiculous. So this is the system that we are subject to without choice, without, we wouldn't allow it if we could, but we're not in a position to fight it. It's all the way to the top. And that's the unfortunate part of, the way our society has been built. And this has been going on for generations. This isn't new. So that's the sad part about being a farmer and doing the good work and not being rewarded on the other side. And that goes back to that case of, all right, grow as much as you can with the least amount of inputs, the least amount of expenses, so you can survive. Because if you continue down the path that they're leading you, sooner or later you're going to get run out of business, because that's their business model. Run you out of business and then come in and take it over, And once they control the market share, then now prices go up because they control the market share, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my own farm is small, 50 acres, so like I see it quicker than these larger operations, and like I said, yeah, my yields may not be the talk of the town, but my inputs, there's no excuse for them. Like I said, I'm so much cheaper than anyone else. Upcycling stuff on the farm, and I guess I'm starting to see the farms responding well. Great pack outs. Quality is not an issue now, and
this is another important thing. There's a company called Nestle Dublin in Dublin, Ohio.
yeah.
Have you heard of them?
No.
You need to send cranberries grown in your organic system, and then another guy's who's 100% synthetic. Now, it probably would be important that you have the same cultivar. So
Yeah.
you need to find a similar cultivar, but you send those off for a nutritional panel. It's not cheap, but you're going to see an incredible difference in the nutrient value. And that's another selling point. So when you move into a farm, you can say, hey, look, my organic berries are this. Your NPK berries are that. Now let's look at the economic data, right? Holy shit, you spent way more money than I did, and you made way less money than I did. Yeah, you did it on scale, but in scale, you're not taking consideration downtimes of machines, mechanics, all these other little pieces that get lost in the sauce because you're so busy farming, right?
Yeah.
And that's something else you got to kind of smear in their face to get them to really stop and think about, holy shit, I did spend X amount of dollars on maintenance and equipment repair. Oh, I had to buy a new machine this year. That's no joke. That's a huge expense because you're going and beating the shit out of the machine to farm all this acreage that in reality, if you let half of it follow, you'd probably make more money by just not even farming,
I know.
right?
Yeah.
Especially areas that are low production or problematic due to a weevil. Let it just wild.
It's funny because it's what I've noticed. Farm A, very chemistry. We push the biology. Some of us push the biology. And it's funny, like the ones that are chemistry based grown. Yes, yeah, you get a nice, beautiful fruit, but you get it for like 24 hours. If you don't get it right away, it starts to degrade quickly. And I see this when I buy strawberries. The kids love strawberries and blueberries. You see it like fruit that shows up, but like is already half degraded. And if it's grown with a biological twist to it, they don't rot. They shrivel. They dry up. And it's not like like I said, it's not rotting. It's just shriveling. It's crazing itself essentially. It's the moisture is getting sucked out just naturally, and so it's and like when you have that versus like a rotten berry is going to rot other berries. Well, when it dries out, it just dries out. It doesn't really affect anyone else. Maybe it brings the moisture level down, but
so it's preserving itself.
Preserving, yeah, 100%. Yeah, you can eat it, and it's not. It's not disgusting. Yeah, it's like I've noticed that.
Yeah,
my own farm, I see it, and then farm A, where I know what went in there, and you can see like the two different. I guess it comes back down to that pack out rate.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we were able to store food that wasn't refrigerated back in the early 1900s. You just dig a root cellar underneath your house or off to the side of the barn or whatever, and that's where you kept your food. And it never rotted because it was grown organically and through biology. So, it got smaller, but it was still good.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's like I said, it's been neat to see because, I've been on both sides of this equation. So, but anyways, I'll do my last ferment. I did a cranberry ferment. So this is fermented cranberry fruit. So like I said, the industry, it's like 26 cents a pound for commodity fruit. So it's, like I said, it's tough. It's tough out there. And last year it was determined it was cheaper to throw it away at the farm level than to pay for it to go to the freezer and throw it away later. Like I said, this is just some of it. So they were throwing fruit. They were literally throwing fruit into the woods, burying it. So, and then so that was going on. And my own farm, we dry pick some of our own fruit so to sell to the public, and we screen it on site. And we have a separator. The old bounce boards, it bounces 7 times. The ones that don't bounce drop because they're like some defect on it, rotten berry or just a bad sidewall, and they drop down. There's like a second spin, and then there's like what they call pie berries, or just small fruit. So, I've been fermenting plants, all last year, and well, it's like, my screening process, we would typically just compost it and we don't really use it, just compost it, break it down kind of. And so I filled a tote with my own stuff. And then I filled a tote of fruit it was native variety, so older variety cranberry that was clean, but was getting thrown in the woods because the market was dictating that. So I took those and I made a little like blender blade. I took a blender blade and put it on a long drill because cranberries float in water. So if you ferment it, you get a little bit of water, the whole thing floats up, which I didn't realize until I put the EM in and put the water in. I was like, wait, everything's floating. I had like 5 gallons of water, and this whole thing's floating up, And so I had to make a little like blender blade to help, break it up and everything. So I think I did, what did we do? I did 2 totes plus some. I probably did like, I don't know, 700 gallons or so of fermented fruit. And, like between Matt Power's book and everything else I've read online is if you ferment fruit, you say you do oranges, you apply it back to oranges, lemon back to lemon tree, cranberry back to cranberry. So, same thing, I get the fruit basically by now because Thanksgiving, this is the week for selling cranberries. You don't sell them this week, you're on your own, I guess. You're in trouble. So, but anyways, so same thing. So last year, I had my own tote. I had this tote of stuff that was being thrown out that it was a shame. I just had to grab it,
Was it a synthetic grown berry or was it organic?
It was chemistry grown berry, for the most part. But there was native fruit, meaning, so, we're on the 3rd generation of hybrids going on 4. So these were like what would be cuttings from Cape Cod or very similar plants to probably what the Native Americans or Pilgrims would have eaten.
Yep.
Because they were basically cuttings from Cape Cod. So 100 years old, but they could be 10,000 year old. You count the mother plant, it could be even older than that, Yep. And that's what I want. Yeah, exactly. And I wanted that native fruit. Like it doesn't make it for a good craisin because it's small and this and that. And they have all these excuses, but so those are the ones they were targeting. So that's what I ended up grabbing. Like I said, I didn't really have much of a choice, but like I said, I had my own, which was biologically based, and then I had these other ones that were, probably less synthetic than normal because they were native fruit. Fermented them. Strained them in July or so. So I was concerned, one thing was I was like, all right, so my own stuff that I used was, part of that was berries that didn't bounce, meaning they were soft. So there could be pathogens in there. So I knew, that, then that was like 1/3 of what the fruit going in. And then the rest of it would have been seconds or pie berries, which are good fruit. They're just small fruit. That get screened out. So, I was still concerned, I don't want to reapply bad pathogens back out there. Bloom is supposed to be a sensitive time for this, for bad pathogens or bad biology going out there. I guess this is the theory. I don't know if it's the truth, but it's the theory behind it. What I'll do is I'll use this fermented cranberry juice and use it as like a fruit fill stage. So wait till the fruit is set, the flowers are gone, and the berries are little berries that are starting to size up, and use and apply it then. Because in theory, the current pathology, mentality is they would be safer then, essentially. So, anyways, I had both Ocean Spray scientist and the extension, both microscope the liquid cranberry ferment and try to plate it out. And because that was my one concern is I don't want to make a bad batch and make something worse. And they said, I kept bugging them. It took them about a month or so to get through it. They said, well, yeah, I mean, there's some in there, but it's like 10% of everything that's in this sample you sent us. Like it's such a small amount that we don't really think would be an issue. So, but that was, like if I tell people this, all the cranberry guys, and I'm applying cranberries back to cranberries, they're going to think I'm, my eyes are crossed or something, like it sounds insane, but at the same time, it's like the plant spent its whole year growing this fruit, so all the nutrition should be in that fruit, right? I don't know. Like it put all its energy into it, so
everybody is operating under fear that they're going to hurt their plant, fear that they didn't put enough fertilizer on, fear that they're not going to have a good crop, and that is not the purpose. The purpose is to have the understanding and knowledge that gives you the ability to say, no, I don't care if there's some pathogens in my fruit, because those pathogens are going to be food for somebody else. They're never going to have the ability to outcompete all the beneficial biology. So they'll actually be a good thing because they're going to be easy to eat food right in the area of these other guys. And I don't trust plating, dude. Plating doesn't tell you shit, right? Plating was designed to see if pathogens would grow on certain surfaces, and like specifically like early on, like they wanted to figure out like if this particular mold was beneficial or harmful, and if it was beneficial, how could we grow it out so that we could make medicine out of it? So plating, the vast majority of organisms won't plate. They only live in nature. As soon as you throw them in an agar, they're like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
Not my world. I can't live in this. So again, I understand scientists love to do science, and everybody's fear-based, like, oh my God, you're going to spread your pathogens. No, the ferment's going to take care of that. It's going to turn it into metabolite if it does survive, which is not particularly likely, because you're going to have a very competitive environment in the beginning. Like everyone's going to be eating everybody, and slowly but surely that what I want to call overall community is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and you're going to have more and more metabolite production, which is all those beneficial things that the plant wants that are plant available. And then you're going to spray it on it, and it's going to be able to take it right up again without wasting a bunch of ATP. So super beneficial. And trust me, the competition is brutal. And if you're a pathogen and there's way more aerobes than the anaerobe you are, you're food, man. You're gone. I mean, just bubbling it will kill them. I mean, you ever seen fish brew when it's like really smelly, really bad smelling?
Yeah.
I bubble that stuff for 2 days and it's gone. It smells sweet now. It's all protozoa. So you can oxidize them. Like if you really were like freaking out, like, oh my God, I'm worried about this pathogen surviving, oxygenate it before you apply it. And
what do you think? Like 48 hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, your nose knows, right? If
Yeah.
it smells really funky, like something like where your nose goes, whoa, what is that? That's okay. If it smells putrid or like poop or something like really nasty, aerate it. All right. But if it's real funky, that's okay. Like the ferment that I did with the kelp when I was first out here, and I saw it foam up, and I grabbed it and put some under the microscope. I was like, oh, this is amazing. It had a funky smell to it, but I couldn't identify it. It wasn't putrid. It wasn't like sulfury. It just had this funk, like, like kind of earthy, funky, like sometimes like animals have that little funk to them. But that's life. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So again, trust your gut, dude. You are on the right fucking path. Look how far you've come in the 4 years. Don't let the NPK guys knock you down. Just trust your instincts, trust yourself that you are on the right path, and you're going to eventually start turning some of these other farmers around to be profitable, especially like when you have a nutritional reading done and you're like 3-4 times better than the other ones, and you can actually show that to people. Huge selling point. I mean, you could be selling berries online as medicine, right? How many benefits does the cranberry provide in consumption?
I mean, they used to, we measure it in barrels because that's what it used to prevent scurvy on sailing ships.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It actually it kind of leads. So one of the farms, Farm A is a farm, I've worked for the past few years. We'll call it Farm B is this this farm where the owner, he's on the Forbes list, he's got some money. But he's I guess his daughter's in the bees or whatever. So anyways, they have this whole bee side project. And they bought this cranberry operation. Long story short, they bought this cranberry operation. I met him at a cranberry convention, and I was telling them all the things I do about biology. And I was like, and they're like the farm is very bee focused. So that's number one. And I was telling them, like, don't get too sucked into like some of the, they're coming from the outside, they're not farmers. They don't come from a farming background, but it's great because they have a different perspective. So I was just telling them, like, don't get sucked into every time you see something, you have to spray it, don't get sucked into, you have to buy your nutrition. Don't get sucked into all these little honey traps that are just within the industry.
So are you going to consult for them?
Yeah. So then, I hit it off with them and I was telling them all the biology stuff I'm doing. Like, actually I told them about the fish brew and the diatoms. And one of the guys, like, he's like, oh my gosh, I love diatoms. He knew tons of, all about it, so he was all excited. And so anyways, long story short, I've been consulting for him. And so this past year, there was like their first year getting into the industry, so I laid out like a nutrition program. I laid out like, I'm not going to tell you, no, don't apply these products because because the cranberry handbook from UMass says this is what you apply for these different pests. I just want you to understand that every time you apply something, you're squeezing that balloon and you're going to get these offshoots of things you may not want. And if you're focused on bee health, the biggest concern is the gut. It's the gut and the bee, and our synthetic fungicides are some of the worst things that are out there for human gut and for bee gut. And just like informing these things, like just these are the trip hazards you have to watch out for. And long story short, so like one of their goals is they're breeding bees currently to be more, cranberry attractive, I guess. They like I said, I think they have like 30 beekeepers or something crazy. I mean, it's quite an operation. But long story short, they brought some bees to my farm. We typically hire in bees.
Yep.
Migratory bees that come from the West Coast and travel the whole gauntlet. So anyways, so they had these bees on site. They also, they have a public outreach program as well. It integrates with our ag tourism as well, pretty well. But they were telling me, like first 2 weeks, they were very close on the bees, keeping an eye on them. And they ended up like within 2 weeks, they had to put these pollen collectors on. I was like, what's that? I go, the pollen collectors are there because the bees are collecting too much pollen. Like your place is just, the bees are just overdoing it. We have to slow them down, this and that. I'm like, oh, that's a good sign. So, and they were very happy to see that because they've done, the bee business has been active for a while, I suppose, but it's a lot of like backyard, hives and like smaller colonies, and it's still like South Boston, so it's pretty urbanized. So, but it seemed like they weren't used to having all this pollen coming off my farm. Like I said, I'm 4 years into it, so the biology's starting to really kick, and
it just shows you the ecosystem that you're building.
Yeah. Like I said, it was neat too. I consulted for them, helped them through their process, and they definitely, it was good. They did things very unconventional, which I'm very happy about. We had them applying fish hydrolysate, had them applying the fish brew. They did buy some synthetic stuff, because they, met the local salesman, and they weren't quite sure, so it was all good though. I mean, this year I'm going to go through them again. I'm going to try to get them to make their own products. I guess one of the guys' sister works on a kelp farm in Canada or something. I don't know. So we'll see what we can do. But they're very, like I said, bee health is number one over there, and so I was able to guide them, like, because there isn't another option for, you can consult with these other guys, but it's a different answer to these issues. So like I said, they were very happy. We had a great relationship this year, and hoping to continue that. But
Nice.
like I said, yeah.
So when they collected the hive from your place, it was creating too much pollen.
Yeah, they said within, like, I think it was like within a month or so, they had to put these, because it's something with, like, the bees, that they bring in too much pollen. I don't know. They don't work on.
They can't process. They have to.
Yeah. So they put these filters in to slow them down, and they're going nuts with it. And initially, like I said, I didn't hire in bees. So, like, when I first saw my first few flowers in the bog, and I went out there, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't see any bees out here. So I called the guy, and it was like probably 20% bloom. He was like, "Oh, okay, bees. They'll focus on one flower. Like, say they'll focus on clover, and then they'll run clover until that runs out. Then they'll move on to the next one." He's like, "Oh, they could just be focused on one, and then they'll move over." But it's like, "Yeah, we'll bring down some new hives, to help you out." And so, like I said, by like next week, everything was fine. It was just like at that initial, like, oh, I'm not used to not seeing, bees out there, but it worked out. And, like, they made a good point too. Like, if the bees, like, when we hire them in, they're getting trucked all around the country. They're getting trucked in, getting trucked out. Like, if you have bees sitting on site, it's their home. Like,
Right.
They know what's coming in. Like they understand the environment more than someone else that just shows up for a few weeks.
Yep. No, that's absolutely true. So it's really great that they're local to you. You're consulting them, and you get the benefit of honey and royal jelly and all the other goody things.
Oh yeah. No, 100%.
Nice. All right. Well, listen, you have a lot of questions, my friend, and typically around an hour and a half in, we start to ask questions. So
nice.
We'll get Ben tied up or back up online, and we'll see what we got for you.
Okie dokie. Just I want to point out, Lucas, no, I did not get your email for the chorus, and that's the other thing. We're giving Leighton's chorus away again today. You have to put it hashtag biology in the chat for the program to pick it up, so that you have a chance to win Leighton's composting chorus. So the questions. Let's see. First one. How long do cranberries last in the freezer, or how long should I keep them in the freezer?
I would say, anything in the freezer can last quite a while. So typically, my dry pick fruit, we just store cool and dry. So that's how I recommend keeping them, especially now's the time to get them because they're in season. Just keep them cool and dry. And if you do end up freezing them, I know the old Pennsylvania Dutch mentality is put a little paper towel on top of the bottle wherever you store them, and it kind of like sucks out any moisture that would be in there. But they should be good for at least 2 years, I would say.
Cool. And just to let you guys know, without the moisture, the biology can't produce anything. Okay. So there's no mold spores that can proliferate without that moisture, and that's where that moisture, getting rid of it, is so important.
And that's if you're doing a root cellar. So just cool. Like, if you freeze it, you lock everything up. Nothing's going to happen. So just keep that in mind.
So this one, Leighton, do you know much about micronizing methods? Micronization methods for minerals and for compost. I think micronized silica, for example, would really benefit.
Yeah, so it's all about the biology, buddy, and fermentation. Like you let them micronize them and make them liquid is the best way. Like so, the reverse can happen too. When I use this story all the time. I had a 1,000-gallon fish tank, and I was collecting the fish manure out of my rotary solid separator filter, and I would swirl it around and get just the liquid out, but I'd always be left with a handful of sand. And so I called Dr. Kevin Fitzsimmons, a dear friend of mine at the time. I think he's retired now. But he's like, Leighton, we've talked about that. It's called remineralization. I'm like, oh, that's right. Fuck. When these minerals are in the same environment, there is a natural pull for them to come together and recrystallize. The words we use are remineralization, but there's a very long scientific word for when the actual atoms come together and start forming molecules. So if you can see it, it's a molecule. If you can't see it, then it's in an atomic state that's too small for you to see. Each atoms are different size based on their configuration, whether it's a proton, neutron, both, how many electrons they have. And all those things are what get them to bond together. So the ideal way to micronize something is to ferment it or use biology to break it down. Like, i.e., I've been recently adding clay into my composting process, and this crazy thing happens. The clay turns blue, yellow, red, and those colors represent the minerals that the biology is pulling out of that clay and then making it reform into these bands. We call it remineralization, or excuse me, there's a word for it in composting. Mineral associated organic matter, because the organic matter has a charge. So those particles come together and form on the outside of the actual organic matter itself. And I've posted some stuff on YouTube, or excuse me, on IG, showing remineralized on compost. So, or what we call mineralized organic matter. Hope that helps. That was long-winded.
So Lily's down here making sure we're doing it right here for the hashtag biology. It doesn't matter as long as you use the hashtag biology. It's going to work whether it's uppercase or lowercase. Now, I had a thought flash in my mind when you were talking about, making those sand particles. Guys, you can think of a sand particle as a warehouse for all of these different, minerals like the silica, etc., the calcium. It's being made in nature, and that's where, that's that warehouse where you put the sand in, like Cass, as in the history, they were always adding the sand every 3 years. You're just bringing the warehouse right to the plant, and then the biology breaks it out of the sand, we say the calcium, to feed into the biology in the plant. So this is something like Leighton is always talking about in this horizontal soil system, is having sand, silt, and clay with the organic material, and then you're covering all the bases. So, I'm so glad that they're still adding sand into, the cranberries, because they're adding the building blocks that are necessary to build a plant.
No, it's true. Actually, it brings up a point. I hosted a seminar sometime this fall, and one of the things I wanted to show everyone is we went out into a newer bog that was, I brought it in basically just in fish brew, because that's when I had met Keith and everything. So I started using it, newer plantings, went out there and dug a shovel, a little shovel full of the vines, pulled it up, and all that sand was like magnetic sand stuck to the roots. I flipped it over for everyone to see. I said, look, feel this. Like I shake it, the sand's all on the roots. Flipped it over, show everyone, and it's like, like the kids' magnetic sand or whatever. Like you could, and I was telling them, this is like the easiest way to show biology is it's all attached to that root of the vine. The vine's holding on to it. The biology is holding on to it. And it's just, it's like a visual thing that you can see without having to, microscope, and, it's, very simple thing to show. But it's, like I said, it's been neat to see, because, it's not something I would normally see.
Right.
But
So what we call that is a rhizose sheath. So the rhizosphere is a very thin aqueous coating around the root where all the magic really happens. But as the biology gets more and more abundant in that aqueous environment, it starts to excrete extra polymetric substances or biofilms. And the biofilms bond those particles together to create the rhizose sheath, so that the biology can just expand and expand and expand. So that's the actual term for what you're showing. But cats, yeah, that is a great demonstration. You pull one out of an NPK system, and it's barely going to be there. It's just because just the nature of that plant. Whereas the ones with the fish brew are going to be looking like stalactites and stalagmites.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's really what it looks like. And actually, I did want to mention. So I just had these hand weeders run through, and I had a guy just run a weed whacker and just chop all the weeds in the ditches and anything that was, some of the beds are just old or it's not worth hand weeding, but just chop off the weeds, makes it look nice. And it's, like I said, I've been noticing that, like, any of the extra leaf matter that would normally sit in top, that would just sit there all winter. And then, you could pull it off, and the leaves are green underneath. Like, it just seems like it doesn't sit there. It's gone.
Yeah, it's your biology, buddy.
It's eating it up. Yep. So it's almost like it's like the easiest way to reapply it. Just get the stuff, chop and drop it, I guess.
Yep. Lazy farming is the way to go, bro.
Yeah.
What Mother Nature would do naturally. And the larger clumps that you get on those roots, like Lily says, is aggregates. And, that's something that when you break up the soil, that's why, Leighton was telling, the name
Kyle or whatever.
Yeah, Kyle, not to go so deep. It's to not break up that aggregation, because in that aggregation, you can get quorum sensing, which is enough biology coming together to look at the biology in the soil and go, okay, we're missing, this type of biology, this workforce, and they can literally create that, by following the genetics and the DNA and put it together, biology that doesn't exist in that soil system. But when you break that up, you're losing that quorum sensing, and then that biology can never actually come into existence. Okay, Squishy Mirror. Is it true that weeds are actually showing up to correct certain imbalances?
Absolutely. That's why we call them indicator plants, because they're trying to shift the soil in a direction, what we call successionally. Ideally, everything wants to end up being an old growth forest until nature comes by and gives us a correction, whether it's an ice age, volcano, hurricane, whatever. Then the great correction comes in, and back to early stage session, and it slowly moves back up the chain. So they're all, most weeds are actually medicinal, and people just don't respect them. So I know there's books online that guide the picture of the plant, and then all the uses for it, where it grows, why it's growing there. So if you have, those kinds of questions, get one of those field guides.
On Amazon. When Weeds Talk is one I have, and I always show that to other farmers, because it gives you any plant, more or less any plant you can think of for pretty much every region, what it needs to survive. And usually it's low calcium, low organic matter, all the signs of, like, a bad ecosystem. But it's, usually, so like I said, it's a great book too, because like the first chapter talks about, like that background theory, and then the rest of it is just like a plant by plant breakdown of what this plant needs to survive, or that weed needs to survive in an area. And if you see that, you have a lot of, dandelion or whatever, it indicates you need more calcium and need these other things. So like I said, I love the book. I share it with every farmer that I see, because same thing, because it basically shows like the plants and that weed's indicating what your soil needs, and you can correct it by nutritionally, or you can try chasing the weed, but the weed's still going to be there. So you might as well nutritionally correct it.
Follow Mother Nature. She's putting them there for a purpose.
Yeah.
And like you were saying earlier, a lot of those weeds are the medicinal plants that we use, to correct imbalances in our system as well. So it Mother Nature had this all figured out so long ago.
Yes, she did.
So when you ferment the ectoskeletons, are you allowing for the creation of the enzymes and chitinase?
Yeah, chitinase, exactly what you're doing. You're not only going to freak the bug out by putting more bugs, the dead bug on them, which has been demonstrated that it's like, you walking through the woods and seeing a bunch of humans crucified, you're going to turn around and go the other way. You don't want to go in there. So it leaves essence or hormones or pheromones on the plant, as well as you're making the chitinase or chitin or chitin-eating bacteria, because they're going to be in there having a field day. So it's a triple threat, man. It will work amazingly on shifting that abuse from that overpopulation of that weevil in those areas.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try that. Should I use like water? Like, how do I ferment them with water, and then, or should I use like a vinegar or?
No, just ferment it with just water.
Just water. Okay.
Yeah, you don't need anything. Just ferment it for a long time, because you need to break those exoskeletons down.
Yeah. No.
Wouldn't hurt to add fish brew.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend that, or an EM1, some kind of biology to speed up.
Yeah.
And then spray that all over that bog in the spring. Watch what happens.
No, I'm definitely going to do that. That's a great idea. I don't know why I never thought of it.
You got so much else on your mind, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm here to do, is contemplate these cranberry ideas with Nate.
So Silly Lily wanted to know, Cass, what is your favorite cranberry dish or drink? Just curious.
So honestly, I realize like the most cranberry I consume is, I don't know if you can see it in I have my water bottle here. I'll pour it out. But what I do is I'll take my cranberries and I'll just slice them in half and then just infuse my water essentially. And then, so it's soaking in my water. I drink that through the day and eat the fruit at the end. That's how I say most of my volumes just go through that. And it's funny, like that organic fruit, it's supposed to say cool, dry environment. I just keep a little bin in my kitchen, and it just let it sit there. And like I said, it dries out, but it holds up really well. It's been really neat to see. You get away from the chemistry, and it's the biology is the answer on that end. So that's mostly how I consume it. Otherwise, this week for Thanksgiving, we'll boil like a cup or two or so. Typically, I think most recipes call for like 1 cup cranberry, 1 cup sugar, like 1-to-1 ratio. I skip the sugar. It's a lemon. It's like a lemon. It's supposed to be tart. It's supposed to have that taste to it. So, I don't hide it with too much sugar, but I get it. Sometimes you have to, for taste, but.
So when you make that, is that you're going to make a gelatin out of that, or?
No, I just boil it. I just boil it with a little bit of water and then cranberry, and you could spice it with like orange or lemon zest, and then a little bit of rum
so you're making a drink out of it. So do you?
Just like cranberry sauce, basically.
Oh, okay. So you're making a cranberry sauce. I get it.
Yeah. But most of the time I consume it, it's just cutting it and putting it in my water.
But so do you smash that in that recipe? Do you smash them with like a
No. You just cook it on the stove top, and it will break down. I mean, it's filled with 90% water, anyways.
Gotcha.
So
Nice. And me personally, my fondest memory is cranberry orange bread that my mother used to make.
there you go.
And she would take cranberries, a cup and a half of cranberries. She'd take orange marmalade, mix that in with the bread mix, and then she would use orange juice for the water.
Okay.
And
yep.
it was just moist and just yummy, and slather it with butter, and off I'd go. Yeah,
nice.
Well, that's kind of suits with what Lily said. Best cranberry sauce is using orange juice instead of sugar.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh,
yeah.
So Cass, when you put the berries in your water, do you get a zest from it? What's it taste like?
Yeah. It's a little bit of zest, and then I know I'm getting the nutrition from the fruit, and I end up just eating whatever's left. As I get to the bottom of the water bottle, and just chew it. Like I said, it's I eat them all day. During harvest, so you kind of get used to it, and
I'm gonna try that tomorrow, brother.
Yeah, like I said, and the fruit will last a while. So like I said, it gives you want to eat it for Thanksgiving, but then like after that, what else do I do with it? But so yeah, like I said, I mean that's how I mostly consume it.
Nice.
So our next question, and I think people think that the cranberry is always got water in it. And I don't think that's the case, but would crayfish survive in the beds?
They do. Yeah, they do. And they're like bigger earthworms, essentially. So, they dig around, they naturally live there, and I've been seeing more and more of them. It's actually been pretty neat. Speaking of worms, like I find worms, like you had that guy, what was this, with that acres, that like ecosystem in his garage.
Oh, he was on earlier. The
yellow skunk or
not squishy mirror.
No, come on. He has the whole aquaponics.
Yep. Is it yellow skunk? Is that what it is?
Yellow skunk farms.
Yeah.
So he talked about how he found the worms right next to the water. And like I said, cranberries, you flood them at least twice a year. So you would think that would reset the population. No, they I don't know. You flood them, and 2 weeks later they're still back out there. I don't know if they go on. They hold their breath or what's going on, but yeah, like I said, the population's been exploding. We use wooden ramps that cross over the ditches. If I leave the ramp on the grass or something for too long, I flip it open and the worms are already going at it. So it's it's a good problem to have.
And the crayfish just burrow down in the sand till they get to a moisture level that they're happy at.
Yeah, and
they survive.
100%. Yeah, I see them. We get otters that come in, and you see all their otter scat is filled with all the crawfish shells and the mussel shells and everything. So yeah, cool. They're all involved with the ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've never grown cranberries, so I know you don't keep them flooded, but I don't know that much about crayfish either. I live in Canada. We don't have that kind of stuff up here. So the last question, I have about 3 gallons of lactobacillus or lactic acid bacteria. Would that be enough to break down chitin?
Oh, you hurt my brain on that one. I don't believe labs are degraders or decomposers. I think they're more of they support, they're like a fungicide, but they also have the properties to support other life, like their excretion is beneficial. I know they're used in odor control, but I don't think that they're specifically like a degrader. That's what you're really looking for, something that's going to degrade the shells. That's why I suggested fish brew, because it's got everybody in there. So somebody's going to be doing the work. But I'm not a specialist on labs.
Okay. Well, that's all of the questions, guys. For anybody that hasn't put in hashtag biology and wants a chance to win Leighton's chorus, we'll give you another minute or so to put in hashtag biology in the chat so that you have your chance to win. But Cass, how many other things are you doing that is improving your overall production?
I mean, I guess the cranberry, the ferment's been my go-to just because it's less. Once it's set up, I don't have to focus on it. Definitely going to aim for more kelp. Applying more calcium. So I did have a calcium product I was buying that was calcium carbonate. So I think it was derived from seashells, and actually, yeah. So it was seashells, molasses, all stuff that and now I'm like, all right, it's basically stuff I could recreate. So one of this winter's project is to find a way to make my own liquid calcium product. So going down that route, and then the other thing, the cranberry ferment. So cranberries, why they're healthy for you is they attach onto bad pathogens in your gut. So like E. coli is one that they're infamous for attaching onto in your gut, and they don't subdue it. They just allow it to pass through. So they prevent it from sticking to your gut wall. And so this is a known study for human gut health. And I wonder, my ferments, there's viruses in plants and stuff like that. I wonder if some of that is getting passed on to. I think so. I'd want to hope so. So these other things, things that you can recreate by tapping into nature that chemistry from a lab is just not going to be able to do. I mean, it's just so there's so many other side benefits to creating your own nutrition that we may not even know what we're doing. Something like that. I know for human gut health, cranberry is doing that, but so it must be doing it for the plant health itself. If I try to extract that, so I guess all these things, and it goes to show that anyone can create your own nutrition. You don't need to buy it from the store, but sometimes you do have to buy some stuff, but if you can have a garden and go to the grocery store, that's a good combo too.
So one of the things, Cass, I did early on when I was moved out here to Oxnard was I had a calcium deficiency big time in a little garden I was trying to grow. And so I made a Korean natural farming ferment with eggshells. You cook the eggshells first, and then you throw them in vinegar and break them down. I forget what the actual 3-letter initials are.
WCA, water soluble calcium.
And so then I reached out to Chris Trump and I said, hey, I'm trying to bump the calcium in my soil. I think that dilution of 1,000 to 1. I'm thinking more 200, 300 to 1. He's like, don't do it. You're gonna cause problems. Whatever you do, stick to the formula. After you use the formula for a while, once you get comfortable with it, then you can experiment. And I said, okay, all right. No, I hear you. That's good advice. I tell people not to be a moron all the time. So what did I do? I was a moron. I 300 to 1, and I bumped my calcium exactly where I wanted it on my saturated paste test. And that was in soil. So again, if you have a serious calcium deficiency, you can go with a stronger extract. I would never do 1 to 1, right? You're going to kill shit if you do that. But, a dilution of 500 to 1 or 300 to 1, that's 1 part per 300 or 400 or 500 parts of water. That's a very low dilution. And again, I was just trying to bump shit off of my cation exchange capacity, my sites, because I had way too much potassium and hardly any chemistry or any calcium. So it works. It works great. So there you go for your calcium supplement. This winter while you're twiddling thumbs, collect eggshells and put them on your grill and cook them up outside and then throw them in vinegar.
No, it's true. I have eggshells currently. I haven't been cooking them though. I've just been throwing them in the vinegar, but that's good to know.
Yeah.
And then
you're supposed to make them so that they're almost like black. Because what happens is
Okay.
you get the little skin to fall off of them. And
Yeah.
that skin you don't want in the extract. It slows things down. And I think I can't remember whether it's a contaminant or it just slows the process down. It doesn't thoroughly let it turn into the CWA.
It's a
No, that's
contaminant.
contaminant too. Okay, like I said, that was one. It's just a bucket, so it's like 5-gallon bucket. I'm not losing much on it.
No.
I have that, and then I have oyster shells. I have fresh oyster shells that were dried for a few weeks, and then I have ones that are a year old, sun dried. So I haven't started breaking down the year old ones, but same thing. I'll try to get that going, so it'll be ready for, I guess, like July or so is the plan. And
You know
like
what?
a lot of this is
See if you can find an old mill, a flour mill, just 2 rocks, right? And they sell them in the antique shops all over Cape Cod. You gotta believe somebody's got one,
I should find something. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that would just turn it into like powder and golden.
Yeah. And like here in this area, oysters are like a next big farming venture around here. So like what's happening is all these guys, they've been in operation maybe 10 years. I think they're getting to the point where they're realizing the shells are, there's a lot of shells hanging around here, and so there may be some opportunities to be getting, free oyster shells and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
like I said, I'm looking forward. I'm just trying to figure out like what is the best way to extract that calcium. So,
Yeah.
Another way is similar to the cannabis industry, where you just crush them using a car jack, a hydraulic jack, but that's not going to make powder. If you can get to powder, you're styling.
Trick. Yeah. And actually, and one of my ferments was male cannabis. So that was another one I did this year. Cool. It smelled really good, actually. So it was a great excuse for, like I said, male cannabis. You usually throw it in the compost pile and forget about it. And this year, I don't know, at least 60 gallons of it. So
nice. You can always remember, feed the plant, right? So that's
exactly. And honestly, a lot of these ferments, I'll do like 2 quarts of this and 2 quarts of that, and just sort of like make my own little blend. So it's probably even more than 500 or close to 1,000 parts to 1. But by the time I dilute it with this and that, so anyways.
Run the draw while we're still talking here.
Well, listen, Cass, I really appreciate you coming on and giving us, 2+ hours of your time. After hours. I'm sure. Oh, congratulations, VA being friend.
Nice.
You're probably beat up and tired and looking forward to a couple days off over Thanksgiving. I really appreciate those cranberries you sent me. Next year,
enjoy.
Some to. Oh, I don't think you can get them to Ken.
Yeah, I don't know if Canada will allow it.
Yeah, probably not. Crazy people up here, crazy Canucks, right?
Yeah.
And Ken, thank you as always for all the work that you do behind the scenes.
Thank you.
We got a very exciting start of the December for our podcast. We're debuting a documentary on
the mulcher. Nice.
And there it is, Amy Smythe. Beautiful. Great, Ken. Please send that over to me so I can shoot that off to the guys.
I already did, Leighton.
Check your email.
You're busy. But tomorrow, guys, we actually have Rick from Let's Be Buds. Andy and I were on his show, I think it was 2 weeks ago. He's coming on to talk to us tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, Don't Panic, It's Natural, chapter 11 of Andy's book. And then, of course, the Muncher world premiere of the documentary film, The Muncher, Can the Biology Save Us, is next Monday. And you're definitely not going to want to miss that.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you, audience. And I think we're good to go, Ken.
Yeah. And for VA Green Fiend, it's all about the biology at gmail.com. Shoot me off an email and I'll hook you up with Perky to get you the chorus. Anybody that wants to purchase the chorus, check out the description below. And there's the link there for you to actually purchase Leighton's chorus. And for anybody that wants to help out the channel, don't forget there's a join button underneath the YouTube video. You can become a defender of the biology, help out the channel to keep bringing you more and more of this content. Other than that, Cass, thank you so much for what you're doing and changing to a biological. And we're seeing it, as we bring you back on. We're going to have you back on more and more so we can keep up to date with what's going on, because you're an amazing man.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving. Eat lots of cranberries.
Yep. Okay, guys. Right. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.